Game over, man. Game over.
Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why so serious?
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
All right, hello, and welcome back to Chasing the Gold. I am Erica Richards, and I am here with my lovely, lovely co-host, Shadan Larkey.
Hello. I'm so excited this is going to be so fun. I'm excited for this episode.
Me too. Okay, so this episode we are going to chat about, kind of just how we got to where we are, how we became obsessed with awards and award shows and films and kind of all the above. So this is going to be kind of like a behind the scenes meet the co-hosts episode. So this is going to be fun. So Sean, let's just start off by telling me, like, do you have a memory or like a distinct like time that you remember, like, oh, I'm an awards person now?
Mm-hmm. So it all starts with my mom because she's a huge film junkie and she's a huge like awards person as well. Like she loves the Oscars and she's from Iran. So she told me that she would like plan even after because basically she came to America and it took several years, like 8 years before she was able to go back. But she said even when she knew that she was going to go to like Iran, she planned her trip to Iran like around the Oscars because she was like, even though I'm so excited to go home, like I can't miss this show. So my mom always made an event out of the Oscars, and that sort of permeated into my bloodstream. But the show that I remember so vividly is the show when Roberto Benigni won Best Actor for Life is Beautiful, which is a movie that my mom loved, and I should not have been watching at however years old I was when that movie came out. But I remember it's such a like iconic Oscars moment where he walks on people's like heads or whatever he's like climbing over people to get to the stage. And I think I was like 4 at that time. And I was just like watching it and I thought it was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And my mom was like freaking out, excited that this actor that she loved had won. And my dad was like, what's happening? Like peeking and like showing interest. So I just remember that was like the moment that I realized like the Oscars were a different kind of magic that I hadn't experienced before. And I can't believe this is how much of a dork I am. But I remember so vividly, like every year, just when I was like little, I would either wear like my mom's nightgowns and I would pretend like I was on the red carpet, or I would wrap my like bed sheets and I would like make a dress, and then I would take like whatever I had, like my hairbrush or whatever, and pretend that it was an Oscar. And I like, that was always my like pretend thing. People have like, they would pretend to be like teachers or whatever, but I always pretended that I was like on the red carpet and people were taking my picture. So yeah, I've always loved it. And I just remember from that ceremony onward, every year when my mom would freak out, it felt like I could freak out too. And it became like the thing that we did together.
I love that. Oh my God, you never told me that before. I love that. Wait, so you remember being 4 years old and watching that? That is like,
yeah,
so young. Like,
yeah.
I don't mean like young to be watching, but that's so young to like remember that far back.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I do have a very good memory. I like probably too good of a memory because I remember things that I don't want to remember.
Yeah.
But like some of my earliest memories are like watching the Oscars with my mom. And I grew up like Galveston Island, like a very small island off the coast of Texas, and like at the time, there really wasn't much to do there. And one of the main things that we did for fun, like on Fridays, we would go to Blockbuster with my mom and my brother, and we would rent movies. And like, I got to pick a movie and he got to pick a movie and she got to pick a movie. And Blockbuster was like one of the only places that my mom could find like Iranian movies to watch too. So she would always kind of go into the international section. And if on the off chance that there was something new, that would make her really excited. And then, and then there was like a Baskin Robbins like right next to the Blockbuster. So always our tradition was like go to Blockbuster, get our movies, get ice cream, and then go home. And in like the Houston area, it rains ferociously. Like it was like monsooning today. So a lot of times when it was like too rainy to go outside, like that's what we would do. We would go and watch our Blockbuster movies. So that was sort of the origin of how I became such a movie monster. And there was also this movie theater has been around. It closed a couple years ago, but they would show $2. Like that was the price. So we would always, so that was like the movie theater we went to, was like the $2 movie theater.
Yeah.
Like every weekend we would go, because again, there wasn't much you could do. So going to the movies, there was like the Olive Garden that we would go eat, and that was like our weekly thing. And then we would go see the $2 movies. So like that was the thing that started that's how I ended up here, was like freaking out about the Oscars with my mom, and then going to like the $2 movie theater at Mall of the Mainland. For those of you who live in the area,
That's adorable.
and no, yeah. But that's how we are. And then it was like not until I got into high school I watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for the first time. And that was kind of what led me to like more of the indie. Because before that, it was like, you know, the Legally Blonde, Mean Girls, like all of the Hilary Duff, Lindsay Lohan type movies that were coming out when I was 11, 12, the peak age for that. And like our big action movies at the time were like the Sam Raimi, like Spider-Man films and things like that. And I had an older brother, so like I feel like I watched whatever big action thing that he was watching. And still to this day, I feel like my brother drives my tastes a lot because I want to know what he's into. But so then when I watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I was like, oh, there's like this whole other avenue of film that's like smaller and has all these like meanings and things that you don't get to see. And no offense to, I mean, all those other movies are great, but there's like this depth that like I noticed for the first time. And I watched, you know, like Far From Heaven and the Richard Linklater films, and like, so there was like this awakening that happened when I was like 14 or 15. And then again, to get into my dork territory, at the time I was like writing for the school newspaper. So I told my journalism teacher, I was like, hey, like, can I review this? And it was Slumdog Millionaire was the big movie that year.
Yes.
Yeah. So I went to see Slumdog Millionaire, and I was like, can I write a review? And she was like, sure. And then the Oscars were and I was like, can I like write about my predictions? She was like, if you want. So that was kind of the origin of that. And then I like started reading, you know, like I was like Gold Derby and like Awards Daily, Awards Watch, like all those sites, getting really into it. And like I originally went to journalism school because I wanted to be a political journalist, but I created in 2016 when like political journalism at that time was really scary. But I remember like my journalist professor asking me like, what do you want to do with your degree? And I was like, well, ideally, like I'd love to do something in film, but that's not realistic. You know, like I grew up like in the suburbs of Houston. I just didn't think that was something that was, I thought, oh, you had to be in LA and New York to get to do that. And so like when, you know, I did get the opportunity to write for Awards Daily and a bunch of these other sites, like it just felt like I wasn't even supposed to be there. So that's kind of my spiel of like how, but yeah.
So, okay, I have a bunch of questions. So, do you and your mom still have any like Oscars traditions?
Yeah. So the past couple of years I've been at South by, which has been really bittersweet because I've been able to watch it with my friends and I've had a lot of fun, but she hasn't been there. So I've kind of felt sad that I like get to, but usually like we do this for like all the award shows. Like those are our ultimate cheat days, and we're not allowed to like talk to other people. We like have to be laser focused on the shows, and then we order like whatever meal, if it's like pizza or whatever, and we have our wine. And that's why like I do like going to watch parties and stuff. That can be fun, but I like to be able to watch the speeches and talk about the dresses and stuff. So getting to watch like with her and like having like that laser focus is really, so it's like still a big part of what we do. And we'll go like watch all the movies together. And weirdly, so my mom, like I feel like because she's like in the age range of like those like more old school Oscar voters, like whatever movie she really likes ends up doing really well at the Oscars all the time. Like she like unapologetically like loves Green Book, and I'll be like,
Hmm.
Mom, like people online don't like this movie for XYZ, and she's like, okay, like I can see that perspective, but I love this movie. And she's always like, when I went to see it in the theater, like it made me really happy, and she loves Mahershala Ali, like that's one of her favorites. So like she loved like Green Book and like Nomadland and like Parasite she loved, like that ended up winning. So she just, her taste just always seemed to align like really well.
That's so funny. Do you guys fill out a ballot and like follow
No,
along?
but I should tell her like next year, because usually she'll just ask me, she's like, well, like who's gonna win, but I should tell her to like do it independently and not influence her, to see how well she does like on her own. That'd be really fun, actually.
Yeah, you should do a ballot, like especially because it sounds like she sees all of it. She sees everything, right? So yeah, you guys should do a ballot. That would be super
She's
fun.
a really good like awards predictor too. She'll be like, I think so and so, and then she'll end up being right. And I'm like, how did you? I don't know.
That's
But yeah,
so funny. That's so funny. I would say my trajectory's been a little different. But kind of the same, right? Like we both have childhood memories of like the, oh my God, you get to go to Blockbuster and like pick out a movie for the weekend or whatever. But I'll say like I kind of am the like odd man out in my family with like my film obsession. Like nobody else in my family really keeps up with like new movies or goes to the movies. I would say my parents in the past few years have gone to the movies more than they have in the past 20 years, because they'll take my niece and nephew, their grandchildren, to the movies. And I'll try to go with them if I can. Like we went and saw Kung Fu Panda 4, and that was really fun. So yeah, my family, like my dad's favorite movie is The Godfather, and like so I watched that probably way too young. And my mom loved The Silence of the Lambs. My dad did too, so like I probably watched that way too young, and that was like really, like, I mean, that's one of my all-time top 5 favorite films. And I think my fascination with awards kind of specifically came from that. I was obviously way too young, but when I got older and realized and like learned that was like one of the big 5, right? So like that's always what I really pay attention to with like awards, is like I'm kind of obsessed with like, will there ever be another big 5? But I think Titanic also really like
oh my God.
yeah, like put awards on the map for me. Again, I was too young. I was 7 when that movie came out, but I vividly remember the hype around it. And like I was young, and I was like old enough but young enough to like not really know what was going on, but old enough to also understand what was going on. Like I knew it was a big deal. And then I feel like my mom let us watch it, and I still have the 2 VHS.
Yes, we do too. Yeah.
Sitting on my bookshelf right now. And I just remember it being like such a big deal when I got to watch it. I don't remember. It was maybe like 9 or 10, so it was a few years later. And I just remember how big of a deal it was to be able to watch it. And then like again, like understanding like this was a big deal of a film. It won a lot of awards and stuff. But I think I became obsessed with movies like at a very young age, just like obsessed with like television and images on screen. Like I think I've talked about before that like at a very early age I was fascinated with production, like understanding production. I've told a different story on a different podcast about like being with my family and being at a hotel like out of the area, like, and being like, wait, those people on the news are different than the people at home, and like my family like laughing at me, but then like explaining, well, this is how it works. And then like that's when my fascination and obsession with like production started. And then like I don't know if you remember this, but there was like, remember when it like first became a thing that there was like, oh my God, there's 500 channels of television now. Like, do you remember that? And there was like the movie channels, and there was this channel that just showed, or I'm sure it was like just one segment of their broadcast, but it was just movie trailers. It was like just movie trailers for like 30 minutes or half hour or an hour or whatever. And I would sit and just watch it. And I remember my dad being like, "Are you watching just movie trailers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like this is so cool." And just like being fascinated with that. But I think awards, honestly, for me, really, it's been in the past, like, I would say since studying film in college and like looking back at older films and what awards they were nominated for or won, or like, being fascinated. Like I still have like an obsession with Hitchcock and his films. And then like being fascinated with like how he didn't really win that many awards and like,
Mm,
things like that. And just kind of like looking at the landscape of like what makes a film an award film and what doesn't. And, just kind of really just being fascinated with awards in general, right? Like how it works and like um the history of awards and award shows. Um so yeah, I would
how did your experience like with film school? Because I really think like if I was 18 again, I would either like double major in like film and journalism, or
yeah.
maybe just take more film classes. Like I regret not having like a formal education. Like how
Yeah.
do you think that shaped like the way that you watch films, the way that you dissect them, think about them?
Yeah, it's hard because sometimes you don't always wanna have, like, a film school brain when you're watching something. You're like,
Mhm.
"I just wanna turn it off and just watch." Um, yeah, sometimes it's funny actually because well, first, when I knew I wanted to go to school for, like, production, but then I didn't realize, like, I could also like, my degree is in video production, but then I minored in film, and I didn't know I could do that, right? Like,
Mm.
I knew somebody in school who was, like, taking film classes, and I was like, "Wait a minute. So, like, you just get to watch movies and then talk about it and write about it?" And it was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Wait, sign me up," because I also hadn't, like, picked a minor yet, and some other people were doing, like, marketing and stuff, and I was just like, that doesn't sound fun to me." And when I found out that I could take film classes, I was like, "Oh my god, sign me up," right? And I was really excited, and this is also why I got my master's in film, was to open up my world of film, right? Like, I we were talking about, um, indie films and like, discovering them and discovering, like, that's a whole genre in itself, and, like,
Mm.
just not really knowing what I didn't know existed, right? And like even like foreign films, like I really wasn't watching foreign films until I started watching them in class and learning about them and just stepping out of my comfort zone with films. Like I always have like taken pride and like labeled myself as a cinephile. Like I'll watch anything and I can find the appreciation in anything. Um, but yeah, I'm it's never too late. Like you should take a film class, like
I
just
know,
for
I
just for
really want
fun.
to. Yeah.
And, like, I honestly, like not that I dream about working, but my dream job would be to be, like, a film professor, and I would love to
Mm.
just, like, continue to just, like, educate myself and study film and introduce it to other people, and it's funny because I remember at my school for undergrad, there was a class that was called, like, film and English or film and writing or something, and it counted as, like, a gen ed English class, so a lot of people who weren't film people took the class, and I remember, like, the last day, one of the film professors it was, like, a very small department at my school, so it was literally 2 professors who I got to know really well and, like, really admired, and I remember at the end of the class, him saying, "Well," it was, like, the last day of class, he's like, "Well, I hope everyone, like, enjoyed this class and this course, like, and I didn't ruin movie watching for them because I had a student one time tell me that I ruined ruined movies for him, and he'll never be able to watch a film the same again." But they saw it as, like, a bad thing, like, they kinda just wanna escape and watch a movie, and now they're gonna be thinking about all these things that they were taught in school and in
Mhm.
class, and I kinda was like, "I think that's kind of a compliment that you, like, opened up like, education side of it," but some people don't want that, right? Like, some people just wanna go to the movies or turn on a movie and not think about anything, and they want that cookie cutter, thing where, like, I wanna see something new and exciting and something I've never seen before and something I've never thought about before, or show me something I've seen a million times, but in a completely different way, and I think it just matters of, like, what you want out of film. And I am glad that I studied it, especially like my master's. I think for my master's degree, I watched over 120 films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a whole list. I should send it to you.
You should. That's
In
fast.
my in my notes app. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I did an accelerated course, like an accelerated program. So my film masters I did in a year and a half, and 6 months of that was my thesis. So I, in like what, 11 months, watched 120 films. Like it was a lot, but it was great. Like I love, that's why I was like, I would like work a full 8-hour day, 8+ hours sometimes, and then come home and do like film school stuff, because I was taking one class a month. That's like what the accelerated program
Mhm.
was. It was a 4.5 credit class every month. So, but I loved it. I loved
But
it.
I feel like that's what I appreciate about you so much, and like why I think it's like really fun to do this podcast with you is
Mhm.
because you have space in your brain for like highbrow stuff, but then also we could talk about something like the idea of you and geek out about it. And you have like equal appreciation for both things, which like a lot of cinephiles don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be like super artsy fartsy. Like yes, I love those films. I love like deep, meaningful, like, cinematic experiences, but I also love the Fall Guy and
Mhm.
can sit in a theater and giggle and laugh at like, whatever. Or like, there's things like, if you ask me, would I say Hocus Pocus is a cinematic masterpiece? Yes, I would. Where it's like you can also have those like nostalgic favorites that you're like
Mhm.
such a fan of, that like it like it's like it doesn't have to be serious, and that's why I love film, because it can be very serious, or it can just be like fun and nostalgic and meaningful to you.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, I think it's never too late. I think you should take a film class for fun, and you know,
It's interesting in terms of like whether our extended knowledge of film has ruined things, because I think ever since I've started doing like interviews with behind the scenes talent, which is what I love, like that's, I would consider myself more of like a journalist rather than like a reviewer, but
Mhm,
it's so interesting to get to talk to like a sound guy and like
mhm,
how they constructed this sound. Or like I remember I talked to the sound team from Everything Everywhere All at Once for Awards
mhm.
Daily, and they were telling me like for the sounds of like her sausage fingers, they're like beating a bunch of belts together, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So like I think that's really cool because it really helps you appreciate like what all goes into a film, right? I just did an
Oh,
interview for with a production designer, and she was telling me like what one thing that people don't consider about production design is like the greenery. So like they have to change the trees to make sure it like matches with the trees of the it just expands my mind so much.
yeah.
But I think in terms of awards, sometimes I do find myself getting really frustrated understanding like the behind the scenes of like it's not always about the best movie, it's about like the movie that got the campaign, or like the performance that they chose to highlight the most in the campaign, like or which actor or actress had like a particular narrative that year that then drove them to get, do you know what I mean? Like I feel
Yeah.
like understanding what the sausage is, how the sausage is made in that sense has kind of been like I don't want to say it like it kind of takes the fun out of it, but then you start to see the Oscars as like the machine that it is, and not the magical thing that it was when I was 4 years old of like the glitz and the grand. I mean, it is all those things, but it's
Yeah.
also a well-oiled machine at this point that is political, if not political with a capital P, it's political of like the game that you have to play,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so that's been like a definitely a double-edged sword of like now I watch a movie and I don't necessarily just look at the performance of like, oh, do I think it's like a good performance? I think of like, is it a performance that it could win? Can it win because it has XYZ factor going for it or not?
Right. Or even can it be in the conversation, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
sure there's been years, or there's things that I go back and I watch, like like I said, like I got really into watching like older films, because that was something I never did until I started studying them. And going back and watching things, and then you're like, "Oh my god, how did so and so not win for so and so?" And it's all in hindsight, right? And like we talk about
Mhm.
that a lot too, right? Like we talked about that a lot with Barbie this year, is like, would it have hurt it if it won?
Mhm.
And that's really interesting too, is like what awards do for legacies of films, whether good or bad. I mean, there's things too that we talk about all the time that's like, oh, that shouldn't have won, and it's kind of like tainted in a way, right, for the rest of time, where, you know, it's like the first time I saw Crash, I went into it with this idea because of all the like Oscars lash that I've heard from about it, you know, like it's interesting too. I think it for us, there's also this thing too where, right, like I want to keep up with new films because I want to see it and make my opinion about it before I hear about everyone else's opinion, and then it
Oh,
gets, you
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
like yeah. That's why it's like certain things I try to stay away from like learning anything about it until I see it, or I try to like, oh, I'm not even gonna watch a preview for it, you know? Trying to go in as blind as possible to something. And sometimes you can't, right? You can with a lot of stuff and making, and it's also just about like prioritizing, right? Like I think you and I are both people that prioritize film watching in our lives and
Mhm.
prioritize like seeing new films when they come out and staying on top of it, which is like it's a whole thing. Like, you know, I have friends who were like, they hadn't been to the movies in years until I dragged them to see the Taylor Swift concert movie in
Mhm.
theaters, you know, and they're like, this is theaters now? Like these seats are amazing and this and that. And I'm like, you guys are missing out. But they also like they can't prioritize it, right? For whatever
Mhm.
reason, work, life, children, you know, whatever it is. And it's just like I'm glad that my life allows me to keep up with something like this that I'm passionate about, right?
Mhm.
It's not a job, it's for fun and it's because I genuinely enjoy it. And it's like a shared experience with someone like you or, you know, other people that keep up with it too. And you know, it's something that, yeah, I feel very passionate about and something that I think is, like, also, like, a unique identity thing to me, like, it's something
Mhm.
that, like, I identify myself as, like, a film person, and people know that about me, right? Like,
Yeah.
people will come, like, to me at work after, like, seeing something, like, because they know I wanna talk about it, and they wanna talk about it because they saw it or, you know, whatever,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
fun too, so,
And I don't think I think I was like saving this to tell you on a podcast. So here
yeah.
we are. But we had a conversation. It was like earlier this year, late last year, whatever, where you kind of made that point of like wanting films to stay this thing that you love and like
Mhm.
not getting to a point where you like resent that. And I feel like I've recently gotten to a point where I'm like trying to think because I'm turning 30 soon. So I'm like trying to think of like, what do I want this next chapter of my life to look like?
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about like you a lot in that sense of like, I want to think the way that you do. Like, I want films to stay something that I love and I don't like resent, you know, like I mentioned I'm a huge discount Tuesday girly. I will like plan my Tuesdays to try to go to the movies when I'm done with work or whatever. But
Yeah.
like I hadn't gone to the movies since we're recording this May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. But but I hadn't gone to the movies since I'd come back from South by, and I like walked into my regular Cinemark that I go to all the time, and
Mhm.
like the smell of the overly buttery popcorn like hit me, and I felt like, oh my god, I'm home. And like I
Yeah,
know that's cheesy and
no.
ridiculous, but like that's like the feeling that like going to the movies gives me, and like I want to hold on to that forever. So like if that means potentially pivoting away from film journalism or whatever into something else, like I would do that because I want to preserving my love for it and preserving that part of my identity, like you said, is really important to me, you know?
No, 100%, yeah, I mean, for me, it was really just like, you know, also kind of doing it on my terms, right? Doing it on
Mm,
your terms, like that thing where you feel like you have to stay up with every new thing that comes out, or like if you're going to write about something, you're on a deadline and then being pressured on that deadline. It's like, are you doing it because you love it? Or if you feel pressured by a deadline, is it like, why am I doing, you know, it's like, again, you're doing it for fun and it's a hard thing to I find the hardest thing for me, and I know we've talked about this, is when I see something that I don't have, like, a very, like, you know, polarizing, like, opinion on one way or the other, like, trying to come up with something to, like, talk about it, like, not even talk about it, but, like, also write about it. It's like that's I think the hardest thing as a critic is to just, like, look at something that you don't really have any strong feelings about one way or another and look at it as, like, okay, I'm writing my review or I'm talking about this to say like this is what, I got from it or didn't get from it and who I think is this for, right? Like
Mm,
I want someone to like when I talk about something or write about something to leave my review or leave my podcast or whatever thinking, do I want to see this or not? And that's kind of really also the way I've shaped about how I think and talk about film because to me, it's like, is everything for me? No.
mm,
But again, I will watch anything and appreciate it. Also, because I think what's really it for me is that I've worked in production and I think I look at things differently and see things differently because of that. Um, and I just not to say like I have a greater appreciation, but like you have a different appreciation for it, right? Now have I worked on something at like film like movie making level? No, but I've made like my own little things, right? And that
mhm,
still counts, right? Like and that's why we were talking about indie films too, because it's like when you hear about something and you're like, "Oh, they only had this much budget or they had this much time or oh, they shot that in 4 days," or whatever it is, right? Like it's different than, "Oh, these big blockbusters that have all this money and all this time and all these resources." It's just like it feels different, you know? But yeah, I mean like we were talking about how like they bring like revivals back to the theaters and like older movies and for me, that's really something that, like, I get that feeling that you're talking about when I walk into a movie theater either way too, like you said, it's also a very nostalgic feeling, like,
mhm,
it does take you back to childhood a little bit, um, but, like, going in and getting to see a movie that I had never seen on a big screen before, that, for me, is really what kinda hits me in my feels, like, "Oh,
mm,
I just love this," like I just this is and whether it's something like, like I remember even like going back to see like Jurassic Park in like the theater
mhm,
or
yeah,
something, or like or Titanic or, like these movies that I've seen hundreds of times and then it's like or like every year when they bring Hocus Pocus back to the theater around Halloween time, like you will find me there, right? You will find me there
mhm.
no matter what because it's it's all the things, right? It's all my favorite things combined into one, and that experience is the one thing. So,
My gosh.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think, yes, and I think there's also, I mean, again, it sounds so like rudimentary, but there's something so beautiful about like, and even when you watch a movie at home, not to the same extent, but like this 2 hours is mine to focus on this. Like, I don't have to worry about whatever else is going on in my life. I can set it aside for 2 hours and focus my energy on this like other thing. And I think with film criticism too, that's like something that I have struggled with in the past, like because it's also hard for me to separate like what I want a movie to be versus what it is.
Mhm.
And just the idea that like I may not like something, that doesn't mean that it doesn't appeal to somebody else. And I completely agree with you. Like I think my what I would want somebody to get out of our film discussions or anything that I write is like there's less time, there's more media than there's ever been before. Like going to the movies is more expensive than it's ever been
Yep.
before. So like is this 2 hours worth your time or is there something else that could another movie, another show, another whatever that's like more, I don't know, worth it? Or and again, that could be different for everybody, who knows, but
Right.
like and also acknowledging, for me, and I would love to know like your blind spots, but like I'm not a westerns person. Somebody else could watch a western and appreciate it more than I can, great. Or like horror films, there's a time and place for horror films, but like I was debating, going to see like Abigail by myself, and I was like,
Mm.
well, I'm just gonna end up feeling uncomfortable and probably a little freaked out, like leaving the theater, going home alone. So like I probably you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, and I think there's a lot of, unfortunately, I think like film critics or whatever who will review like the children's movie or the rom-com, like knowing that they're not the audience for it. And I'm like,
Yep.
why?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and then it's again, it's like, what's your real motivation for it? Are you doing it because
Mm,
you love it, like love it being like film and and film criticism, or are you doing it just because like somebody needed to do it and you had to write a review and so
mhm,
like here's what you gave it, right? For me, like I would say I have some blind spots that are like I've never seen a Star Wars film, like any of
Oh,
them. Yeah, and like it's kind of like a weird like badge of honor now where I'm like, yeah, I'm like this film person and I have film degrees and I've never seen a Star Wars film. But for not any for no other reason other than like I would say that's kind of like my blind spot. It's just like kind of like what is that genre? Like sci-fi actiony kind of
mm,
things. Like it's just not really my thing. Again, or you know what else is like superhero films. Like that's just not really my thing. Like I don't know if it's like a something that kind of everyone's obsessed with. So like it's just like I don't really have any interest in it. I don't know.
mm.
Like the like superhero type movies, I would say the only ones I've seen are all the Spider-Man ones. Like I do
Oh,
like those.
interesting.
I
You know,
do like
it's
those.
weird, like the MCU in
Yeah.
particular holds like such as because my best friend, who's still my best friend to this day, like she is really into superhero stuff. So like
Yeah.
ever since we were in high school, we would like go to the midnight premieres together. And she has this thing where she always has to have like Sour Patch Kids when she
Ah,
goes to see a superhero movie. So like even now that we're like 30, we like go see these, and she buys her Sour Patch Kids and all these things.
that's cute.
So now though that the MCU has sort of waned, and I'm like, I still go see them because that's our tradition, but I don't
Right.
enjoy them anymore. You know what I mean? And that's also, I think, something kind of brilliant about film is like it's its own time capsule in a way too, of like
Yep.
the things that you enjoyed when you were 17 are not going to be the same things that you enjoy when you're 30, and that's okay.
Yep. No, 100%. Um, so okay, you touched on something interesting there that I wanted to talk about. Do you have like a tradition of like, okay, every time you go to the movies, you get this to eat and this to drink and this snack and like, do you have anything?
Well, here's the thing. So I saw this thing on Twitter where somebody was talking about this exact point, where they were saying like going to the movies themselves is not expensive. The thing that makes the movies expensive is like the stale popcorn that you feel like you have to buy. And like
Yeah.
that's true. Like part of the movie theater model, like the way they make their money is through their concessions. I don't have a specific concession. I mean, I'm a big like ice cream girly just in
Mm.
general. So I like to treat myself to ice cream. It also like depends. Like I feel like longer movies, like at the Draft House, they have this churro popcorn. And when I
Mm.
went to see Dune, like my friend and I shared this like huge bucket of churro popcorn, and that added, I think that might have elevated my like opinion of Dune from like an 8 to a 10. So like I don't know.
Oh, that
Just
sounds so good. Cinnamon's like my favorite.
yeah, me too. I tried to like remake it at home, and it was good. It wasn't the same, but it was still really good. So yeah, sprinkle some cinnamon and sugar on your popcorn.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
But so do I have a specific thing? No. Although I will say I'm kind of a dork in that like I like dressing up a little bit for the movies, like wearing an
Oh.
outfit that I like and like doing my makeup and going, I don't know. I like to look cute even when I'm going to the movies by myself. I like to treat it as like a little date, and
That's so cute. I
Yeah.
love that.
even I had a time where I was like recovering from something and I was really sick, and like the first thing that I did when I felt better is like go to the movies, or like just anytime that
Yeah.
I have like if I'm like recovering from a cold or whatever, the first thing I'll do when I'll feel better is like go to the movies. That's like
Yeah.
go to the movies is like dipping my toe into like the larger societal landscape.
Yeah. No, I love that. I will say, almost every time I go to the movies, it's me and my boyfriend. We go together. We have like the AMC A-list membership, thing. And we always get a large popcorn to share. And I will either get like a Coke Zero, or I'll be really annoying and ask, and they give me half Coke Zero, half cherry Coke, because I love a cherry Coke, but I can't drink that much. It's like too much. So it's like I just want like a little bit of cherry Coke. Sometimes I'll treat myself to like a Coke and like cherry, like icy. You get the like Slurpee kind of thing. So I'll do the mix of like cherry and Coke in that one. That's always
So there are
fun.
like certain films where you tell yourself like this is a film where I get to treat myself. Is this like a
Yeah.
treat?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, going to the theater. It's like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna get the icy. But like, I mean, we went like I was, we were talking. We went last night to see The Fall Guy, and we had like just gone to dinner beforehand, And it was like, we always usually plan our movies so that we can get popcorn and like enjoy it. But we had just like had dinner, and it was like, we're walking to the theater, and I'm like, are we getting popcorn? He's like, well, yeah, we have to. Like, it's the movies. Like, we have to get popcorn. I'm like, okay, well, I'm like stuffed from dinner. Like, so he's like, well, I guess I'll just get like a medium popcorn. And then like, and I also just got a water because it was like, I can't drink soda right now. Like, I'm so full. You know what I mean? So no, it's just like, I think popcorn's like the tradition. And sometimes we'll even like pop a bag of popcorn here at home, like when we're watching a movie, which is fun. Sometimes I like to add M&Ms into like the bag of popcorn because it's like
best.
Yeah, it's like warm and melty, but like not completely melted, and yeah, and like
ask you.
Yeah, the Cinemark that we used to go to Cinemark, but we switched to an AMC, and they used to have ice cream there, like scooped ice cream.
That's
And
where I was gonna go next. Is
Yeah.
that I would love to get the AMC like stubs. That's like I would be the person that would go the 3 times a week or whatever. But
Yeah.
the AMC is like a little bit further away from me, so it's not. It's like logistically difficult, and that's what I hate about living in the suburbs. Is like I have to always drive to like main area Houston to be able to go see like the foreign films or whatever doesn't make it my way. But and like when I was at South by, oh my god, okay, so there's this like you've been to this particular draft house before. It's like the main one that they have for South by, but there's an apartment complex that's like across the street. So I was like, if I moved to that particular complex, I could have my draft house down the street. There's a coffee shop, there's an ice cream parlor, like
that ice cream place is really good. I missed the movie because of the shuttle at South by, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk myself to that little ice cream shop, and it was so good. It was so good.
Is that not the most perfect Shadan area ever? But I'm like, you can't move to Austin just so you could live across the street from a draft house. But then I'm like, can't I? Like you
could. You totally can.
That's enough of a justification. But like that tells you everything you need to know about me, that I'm planning my future around my proximity to an Alamo draft house.
No, I love it, and I totally support it but again, it's like it's something that you love to do. It's like part of you, and I don't think there's any shame in that. Same thing for us. Like we were kind of like equal distance from the Cinemark and the AMC, and my boyfriend like crunched the numbers because we were like, okay, like how much are we? Because the Cinemark one's only like, their membership's like $10 a month or whatever, and you get this amount off on concessions. And then it was like, okay, then the A-list like stubs, it's like, okay, it's more, it's $23 a month, but like you can see literally 3 films a week. And and like it was also at the time, I would say we definitely try to get the movies as much as possible, and I would say we see at least 2 or 3 a month, so it does pay for itself. But at that time we were going to the movies like 1 or 2 times a week, so it was like totally worth it. But anyways, so I live in an area right outside of Baltimore, and I'm going to talk about the 2 indie theaters in Baltimore in a second, but I live in an area that's like very like populated and walkable right where I live, and there's this like kind of like strip mall kind of thing right near me, again walkable, and they were going to I'd heard they were putting a theater. They were like renovating, and I heard they were putting a theater. It's called like Flagship Cinema. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but Flagship Cinema, and they were supposed to put it there, and then COVID happened, and it's never that like big part of the building that was supposed to be a theater, like nothing has happened with it. We still for just have like 3+ years been like looking at that part of the renovated mall, like what is this going to be? And then it was like they were talking about like, oh, it's going to be an Amazon store or whatever. So I still don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm like, oh my god, if I could walk to the movie theater, like that would be life-changing. So I totally understand. But,
Erica, you and I are kismet because I have the same exact thing where I live.
yeah.
So I live in the suburbs of Houston, and we were getting a Alamo Draft House. Like they built it. It was going to open, and then COVID hit.
No.
And they've like, I think they sold whatever that property was to something else. So we're waiting exactly like you, like waiting to see what it is, but it's not
Wait,
going to be a draft house.
But it was it become a theater?
No, they've
Okay.
just sold. They're like selling the land to whatever the thing.
Oh,
But
okay.
but yeah, like I was finally gonna get my draft house, and
Oh,
but yeah,
that's
same thing.
devastating. That's
Yeah.
devastating. But yeah, so in Baltimore, there's these two indie theaters. One's called the Charles and one's called the Senator. And the Charles is just super, super cute and like super like kind of old school when you walk in. It's also connected to it is like a tapas restaurant. So it's like it's cool because like you can go into the tapas restaurant and like have tapas and like sangria and like eat really good food, and then literally like it's connected to the movie theater, which is just like I just love it. It's just like fun. And they do like deals and stuff, and they also show like revivals there and things, and it's really fun. And then they also do like on Sunday mornings, you can like buy a membership just for this like specific thing, and they'll do like local or indie films on Sunday mornings, and then they'll have like coffee and bagels and stuff, and then you watch the movie, and then somebody from like the production is there, so like whether it's like a director or writer or producer is there to do like a conversation, which I just think is really cool and like really supportive of like the arts in Baltimore, which is awesome. And then the Senator Theater is just like a really old timey, really cool theater. I sent you a picture of it when I went to go see Before Sunrise, and that was really cool. It's just like a really fun theater. And it's where like, John Waters would like premiere his like films like
Mm.
back in the day and stuff. So it's got a lot of history. It's really cool. And like in front of the theater, like on like the concrete like sidewalk, they have like things like movies like Hairspray, is like kind of engraved into it, but they have like a bunch of other old films and stuff too. It's just really cool, like really, really, really
Have you gotten
cool
to
theater.
see anyone cool like at your just when you go to like the retrospectives? Like, have you been able to see anybody?
No, unfortunately, but I just love that they do it.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was Googling because there was this theater, it was called the River Oaks Theater. It was like I think one of the oldest theaters like in all of Texas, and it was like in this perfect part of kind of downtown-ish Houston. And that's like where they would always show, like the indie films and stuff like that. And it closed a couple years ago. And I know like Richard Linklater and a couple of the other like Texas-based film, they've like come up with a plan to try to save it, but I don't know where that's been in progression. But I really miss that theater because that was the theater that like when I wanted to have like a day, yeah, I would go, like because it was like this Art Deco, had gorgeous stairs and all these things. So it's like you felt like you had to like dress up to go, and like I don't know. So I miss my iconic Houston theater that's gone now.
No, yeah. See, that's the thing is like I remember like during COVID times being like really afraid that like those little indie theaters were gonna close. So I'm so glad they made it.
Well, like the ArcLight in LA though still
Yeah.
hasn't like if they open the ArcLight, I will plan a trip to LA just to go to the ArcLight because I always wanted to go. I remember like being a teenager and seeing like paparazzi pictures of celebrities and being like, I want to go to the ArcLight.
Yeah, I would love to go there too. Another really cool thing to do in LA that you have to plan when you get there is of course the Oscars Museum. So I did that this past
Yeah.
last
Mhm.
summer, which was just awesome. And then they show movies there. Like there's a really cool, like beautiful theater there. And I got to see that when I was there, they were playing Beauty and the Beast. So I got
Oh,
to,
that's
which was
nice.
like my favorite like Disney, princess film. So that was really fun to like go and like be in the theater and be in a really fancy theater. Like they don't even let you have like I don't know, did they let us have water bottle, I think? Like it was like there's no popcorn, there's no like anything. It's like a very fancy theater.
No,
it
the
was so cool.
Oscars Museum in LA is gorgeous. Like if you are I would 100% go to LA just to go to that particular museum. But even like their like the like swag shop in that place is really
Yeah.
cool. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then just in terms of like, I'm trying to think of other iconic theaters that I've been to that I really liked. I did get to go. So in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Margot
Mhm.
Robbie has that scene where she goes to see, she's like
Yeah.
Shannon Tate going to
Yes.
see. I did get to go to that theater, which is really cool.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Where
Mhm.
what did you go see there? Do you
I
remember?
forgot what it was called. Well, I went to see Cocaine Bear because it was raining really hard in LA and I needed to get out of the rain. So I went to see Cocaine Bear. Not a highbrow film, but I contain multitudes. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so
Mhm.
fun.
And it's really cool. I tend to go like if I'm staying in any place for an extended period of time, like I'll always go to the movies. So like if I go to
Mhm.
my aunt's house in Toronto, like I always go to the movies there. Even when I like go to Iran to visit my grandma, like I'll go see movies like the Iranian movies when they come
Oh,
out.
wow.
Yeah, and there's like a gorgeous theater right by where she lives that's like Art Deco and really old, and they have pictures of like Asghar Farhadi and his like holding his Oscar like in the
Oh,
theater.
that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
like
I also try to when I'm anywhere, I try to go if there's like a little indie theater. Like one
Mm.
time I was in Maine in Portland and I went to a little indie theater there. Oh, you know what I saw? Oh God, what was that? What was that movie with Aquafina, the A24 movie, like one of her first
Oh, The Farewell?
The Farewell. I saw The Farewell there
Mm.
and I was literally the only person in the theater and I just like fell in love with it. Um where else? Where was I? Um I'm trying to remember where I was. Oh, in Vermont, I went to like a little tiny theater when I was there once for a wedding. I think it was also raining, and it was just like, what are we gonna do? We had like a bunch of other stuff planned, but it was raining, like outdoorsy stuff because it was Vermont, right? But it was
Mm.
raining, so we went. I don't remember. Oh, we saw. Oh shoot, what was that movie with Adam Driver and It was like the three different like store like from three different aspects. Oh my god, what was that movie?
It was like one of his Noah Baumbach films that he did.
No, it was oh god, the girl from oh hold on, that's gonna drive me nuts. It was Adam Driver, um Matt Damon, and the woman from Killing Eve.
I don't think I feel like I
Oh
know what
my
you're talking
god.
about, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, hold on, that's
Wh-
gonna drive me nuts.
while you look it up, so I
Yeah.
kind of want to touch on just as we like end sort of our lives outside of film. And I know you're a big book nerd, which brings me to I don't always have a chance to go to movie theaters when I visit a new town, but what I will always do is find an indie bookstore.
Me
And
too.
yeah. And if I hit the lottery, the first thing that I would do if I came into money, I'm not exaggerating, is I would open my own indie bookstore with like a little cafe in the corner. That is my dream. And I would have book club discussions there and I could set up a screen and do like movie nights. That is
So
my dream in life.
I'm also an indie book store nerd, and when I was just in Boston, we went to this little indie bookstore because we had to wait to like get into our Airbnb, and we bought books there. There's this bookstore called the Buzzed Word in Ocean City, Maryland, that I tell everyone about because it's a wine store and a bookstore. So they'll like pair wines with books, and like there's
Oh
like a little
man.
bar, and they host events there. Yeah, they do book club events there. They do movie night events there. They do all kinds of stuff, and it's just like that's also my dream. So if we both come into money, we can come in together somewhere
I'm
and
telling you,
yeah,
I'm
like a little like
down.
coffee, wine, bookstore moment. And yeah, like it's just that's also my dream. The movie was called The Last Duel, by the way, for everyone yelling at us.
Oh. Oh,
Did
that's
you
been
not
on
see
my
that?
list to no, that's been on my list
It's
to
good.
watch because I know I've heard really, really good things about it. And that was
Yeah.
one of those movies that was like in the broader awards conversation, but never
Mhm.
made it. So I never watched it, which is
It's good. It's good. It's
Something
worth a
that I need
watch.
to do.
Worth a watch for sure.
But yeah, so I'll be honest with you, like hobby wise, I mean, I love a good museum. Like I will always just go to museums and I'm lucky that I live in Houston because the museum scene is incredible. But like going to the movies, going to like theater shows, like actual performances and stuff. And then if I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm just either reading or like watching a movie or watching TV.
Yeah.
So that's like the broader picture of my whole identity. It's like
I would say
I'm
exactly the same, but also add sports onto that. So like
that's what I was gonna ask you. Can you tell me a little bit about like your sports journey? Because I feel like that's such a big part of who you are, and I don't know that aspect of you as well.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I would say that's probably been not probably. That is sports have been my life for longer than film and movies. So I've just come from a sports family. Like I grew up playing sports my whole life. I still play sports. And
What do you
just
play?
like so I growing up, like I played softball year round from when I was like 7 or 8 until like my early 20s, like when I played in college. And I've played every year since. Actually really sad except for this year, like the team that I played for, just like co-ed slow pitch, like team for fun, folded. We couldn't get enough people because like people with like their kids sports and stuff, like we couldn't get enough people. So it's like kind of really sad for me. It's the first year like that I haven't played softball, but
Well, dang, if you live in the greater Baltimore area, sign up for Erica's softball team.
And that's the thing is like I could find a team. Like there's tons of like social sports leagues around here, but like it was like kind of sad for me because the team I'd been playing with, we've been playing together for like 8 years, and it was just like I don't want to play with anyone else. I like want to play with them, you know? But so yeah, it's weird that I'm not playing this summer. It feels weird, but so I also was like, oh, maybe I'll like take a little bit of a break. But I also so in high school, I did 3 sports. I played volleyball in the fall, I swam in the winter, and then softball in the spring. But I also was, like I said, playing softball year round, like outside of school. And I still play volleyball. And I have recently taken up pickleball. So I'm having a ton of fun like learning and playing pickleball. It's also fun to like, you know, like I said, I've been an athlete my whole life, so like playing sports my whole life to like learn a new sport. Which is also why I was like so bummed about softball, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna like really lean into this pickleball thing. And it's been really fun, and it's like an amazing workout. And yeah, so like sports have just been like my life for my entire life. And that was always one thing too that like, you know, you hear about like athletes growing up and like being pressured by like their parents or whatever to like keep playing. And like my dad was my coach my whole life, and you know, we were always such like a like softball sports family. And I always remember my parents every year being like, you can, if you don't want to do this anymore, you don't have to. But I loved it. And like that's why like still being like in my 30s and still playing, it was like I do this because I love it, not because I felt pressured, you know. And like I played like at a very competitive level. But again, like I did it because I loved it, and that's why I still play. But yeah, so then yeah, volleyball, swimming, and then softball, and like I said, pickleball. And but also like my whole life I've been like a Baltimore sports fan. So I've been like a huge Orioles and Ravens fan my whole life. I've gone to Ravens games with my dad. We've had season tickets since I was like 10 years old. So I've been going, yeah, like it's been something that I've done with my dad like my whole life. Which was really fun. We like went to the Super Bowl when we won in the 2012 season when we were in New Orleans. Yeah, like I went to the Super Bowl. It was incredible.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, so like a very dedicated Baltimore sports fan my whole life. I've been an Orioles fan, which you probably see me post online all the time that I'm at Orioles games. But I've been an Orioles fan longer than I've been a Ravens fan. So like the Orioles have been around my whole entire life. And I was a fan going to games even when we were terrible for a really long time, and it's so exciting and so fun now because we're good. So like that's just been really fun. And last year was the first year my boyfriend and I, we got like a season ticket package, so we did it again this year, obviously. And it's just a blast. It's like If you're someone who's a baseball fan, Camden Yards, the stadium because it's like the most beautiful stadium in all of the Major League Baseball stadiums. So it's also like a destination. Like people come here to come to Camden Yards, which is really cool. And even if you're not like a baseball fan, like it's still a destination if you come to Baltimore to come to Camden Yards. It's like they call it like the ballpark that forever changed baseball, just because it's such a beautiful stadium and it was really built with the fans in mind. So it's like there's not like a bad seat in the stadium. And it's just a really cool experience and it's in a great location and a great place. So you'll have to come to Baltimore and I'll take you to an Orioles game.
Yes,
It's so
yes.
fun. Yeah.
Games and independent bookstores, sign me up. That's like my dream trip.
Yeah. So yeah, but otherwise, yeah, if I'm not playing sports, watching sports, I'm watching movies or TV or reading, or I also love to like go to the beach and swim and all of that good, like be outside on the water, all of that good stuff. So yeah, and like I love to travel, so anytime I can travel, even like local travel, I feel like the past few years we've taken a lot of big trips, but we've also tried to do like, little places around Maryland or the Eastern Shore that like we've never been. So love to travel. So
I do too. That's why I would love to live in like your part of America because I feel like it's easier to take like a weekend. Like in Texas, like you have to spend like just one day planning how you're gonna get out of Texas to be able to like drive anywhere else. So it's like a huge pain in the butt. But like I feel like if I lived in New England, like I could totally go to like Boston for the weekend or like Vermont for a weekend. Do you have any bucket list trips? Because mine is as cheesy, I know, cliche, but like Paris. Like I just need to get to Paris before I die, and then I will be happy.
Well, I'm actually doing a big trip soon overseas. I've never been overseas, so like super excited. So doing all the London touristy things, which I'm super excited for. Honestly, like I'd love to go to Ireland and Scotland. Like those are definitely on my list. And like I would say like big bucket list, like one day if I could get all the way to like Australia, I just feel like that's so like far other side of the world. Like to be able to get there one day would be like really cool thing on my list, I think. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for like local travel too, spending like a little weekend in a place near you that you've never been. I do feel very grateful because it is so easy to get around where I'm from in like the mid-Atlantic, like hop on a train and be to New York City by like 3 hours, which is great. We've done a bunch of trips actually to New York in the past few years, which like I hadn't been for so long. And taking the train from Baltimore to New York City is just so easy. Like, and it's such a fun little trip. We've been doing that a lot. Or even like, I like a couple months ago did like a quick weekend trip to Philly with a girlfriend and like Philly's so close and or even like DC, right? Like DC is literally my backyard and like it's one of those things I have to like remind myself that it's like a privilege to live near DC and not like, it's that thing where it's like, oh, it's all the traffic and like, oh, I don't want to go to DC unless I have to. But it is like a really cool place to go and visit.
Yeah,
so.
that's why I have a huge bucket list thing of like I think my personality is very suburban and I feel like if I lived in a huge city after a while it would like break me down. But I would love to have like a 6-month sabbatical in New York just so that I could experience it and like go to all the shows. Like I'd go broke just by like Broadway alone. Like don't even get everything else, but like I think just to have that taste of like I got to do it and then I can just like go back to my regular life and have like my but yeah.
That's why it is so nice because like I can scratch that itch without like having to move there. And like Baltimore is such a great little city that like you still get like the city life feeling without like it being like New York or DC, And I lived in the city. I live about 10 minutes from the city now, but I lived in the city for a while and I miss it. And I say I miss it and it's just 10 minutes away and I'm there all the time, but like I do miss like city life, if you will. But yeah, I mean anytime you want to come up and we can travel the Mid-Atlantic and East Coast,
Yeah,
you are
you're
more
gonna
than welcome.
regret that because I've been on like a travel thing, so I feel like anytime somebody's like come visit, I'm just like, okay, I'm packing up my my whole life and I'm gonna go like crash on your couch. Um, so yeah, is there anything that like you feel like to paint a picture of Erica Richards we haven't touched on?
Gosh, no, I think we've hit on all of it. Yeah, I'm glad I got to talk about sports stuff because I
Mm-hmm.
don't, this is such like a different side of me that like I don't really ever get to. Well, I guess like if I'm talking about sports movies, I do, but that was fun to get to talk about like being an athlete and that side of my personality because that's kind of like not a thing in the film world a lot of the time. So that
Mm-hmm.
was fun. What about you? Any final like people should know
I
this
don't
about Shadan?
I don't think so. I know we've touched on this before, but it's like super exciting to get to do this with you and like just have this space.
Yeah.
And I feel like, we get to, as hosts, like I guess, shape it. And so I'm just really interested to see like where this is gonna go. And it's like fun to get to
It's so
nerd
fun.
out so much. And so yeah, I'm just like really grateful to be like in this space. And to your earlier point, like I'm grateful to be in a position where like getting to go to the movies or whatever, like, and have my hobby be like a big part of my life, like that's a privilege, not a lot of
Mhm.
people get to do that. So I just
Mhm.
feel very, very lucky. And like as I am looking ahead into what the next chapter of my life, like what I want it to look like, I want to keep doing this, like whether
Yeah.
it's like in whatever capacity. Like I just always want to have space in my life, in my heart, and my brain for like film and what it means to me, what it could mean to other people. And yeah, the biggest thing you should know about me is that I'm hugely like sentimental. I'm a huge cheese ball. I feel like I always like emotion first. Like anytime I'm thinking about anything, I just always think about like how did this make me feel, and like how am I
Mhm.
gonna, like, or like are you gonna remember how you felt about something? Because like there's a lot of movies that you go and you see, but then you don't really remember, not
Yep.
outside of the plot, like you don't really remember anything about how it made you feel, or like.
Yep.
So I always lead with that, with like my emotions, and just like how is it gonna make somebody else feel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's beautifully said and a beautiful way to kind of put our stamp on this episode. So, um like always, please, if you have feedback for us or comments or questions or anything, please reach out. Follow In Session Film, follow us. I'm at eRock Reviews on Twitter. And Shadan, do you want to drop your handle?
Yeah, I'm at Shadan Larkey everywhere. The like beauty of having a weird name is like no one's gonna take your I can have whatever social media handle I want. So yeah, I'm at Shadan Larkey. And yeah, we would love I mean, I think at some point if we did like a Q&A episode, mailbag episode, that'd be fun. But like
That would be so fun. I would
yeah.
love that. Oh my God, I
Yeah,
would
so
love
like
that.
submit questions, like any yeah, I think that's like what's so great about getting to do this too, is like it's a conversation. So like anytime we get to broaden it outside of just the two of us too, like
Yeah.
that's always such a privilege too. So
No,
yeah.
100%. Like you said, super grateful to be here with you. Super grateful for In Session. I can't wait for the future, and we're gonna keep having fun. So, stay tuned, everyone, and thank you for listening to this episode. And we will catch you next time.
See you guys.